Yo, yo, yo. What's good? What's good? It's Stormy B Man, and I am back. Welcoming you to Stormy B Man's Temple of Culture and Entertainment. Re-enter the Snyderverse, the return of the DCEU. This is a subject that has been burning up the airwaves for the past couple of weeks, and the intensity of the subject is growing ever and ever more heated as we have found that movie-going audiences have rejected what was defined as the new DCU formed by DC Warner Brothers CEO James Gunn. James Gunn's universe of DC IP has run a short gamut that has disappointed people, turned them to disinterested parties. And though the sale of Warner Brothers Discovery and the DC brand through Warner Brothers, that was imminent, they thought that they could bring someone in from Marvel who had some success over there, such as James Gunn, who could kind of on their way out bring some quick cash into the company to drive its stock up and everything. But if anything, Gunn has alienated audiences even more, even though that there are shills out there who have tried to do their part to convince people that Gunn's reimagining of a different direction for DC IP would be something beneficial to all parties involved. It has been incorrect. It has been incorrect to the utmost. And what we're finding is that anyone who has been dissatisfied with that has now found a silver lining through this process, because there are rumors that interested parties who are going to be eyeing what happens with the sale of the DC IP along with Warner Brothers, if there's a chance for things to go back to what audiences did receive well, and that's the Zack Snyder created universe, as well as the Christopher Nolan executively produced universe, because many people forget that part, that Christopher Nolan, the famous director of the Dark Knight trilogy, had commissioned Zack Snyder to kickstart the IPs. And the very first film was Man of Steel. And so once we got that, we found that it was definitely a different take on Superman, but it was a little bit different from what Marvel was doing. And audiences received that very well. In fact, to the degree that the things that they found to criticize it about and for, they found small details, such as it was too dark. What I enjoyed about that introduction was Superman was treated from the standpoint of what he actually really is, and that's an alien. How would our society react and respond to finding out that there's an alien living amongst us who looks just like a normal human being, but has exceptional gifts, powers, and abilities, including flight, super strength, and invulnerability? That would make you just immediately turn your mind in the direction of like, what the devil is this? You know what I'm saying? So Superman was never introduced to audiences like that historically through the comics, although there were small sprinkles of that type of revelation. But the way that Zack Snyder did it, he built an entire solid story based around delivering Superman. I remember sitting in the theater watching Man of Steel for the first time, and the opening sequence that introduced the birth of Kal-El, the world that he lived, his dad Jor-El, and the science and organic atmosphere of their whole existence as Kryptonians. I was fascinated because if you remember Richard Donner's Superman, the movie from 1978, it did it in a different way back then. And if you noticed, there were elements of comedy in Superman the movie, but it was never to laugh at Superman. It was never to laugh at the themes of why the world needed a hero like Superman. It was never treated disrespectfully about where he came from. That whole thing about Krypton being a planet of like ice and crystals and all of that, and their attire which seemingly glowed and all of that, that was ethereal. It was something totally different for that time. Christopher Nolan had Zack Snyder create a world that was so far advanced beyond Earth, but at the same time, they had a connection to their planet. It was like Krypton was organic. They lived beneath the surface, and they had lived beneath the surface of their planet for generations. And because they were mining and drilling into their own planet and everything, that's what brought about its destruction. Totally a great way to introduce a new storytelling of Superman. In other words, here on Earth, he has flight, strength, all of these things, but there they were superbly grounded. Even with the animals from their planet, they were riding the animals instead of driving cars. Even though they had ships and stuff like that, there was something organic about it all. The introduction of the codex, what that meant. I mean, it was something that, okay, that movie started, right? The DCEU. But it could have taken more films to tell more, because there was a lot there. And they did that on purpose. They did that by design. Even the fact that they took the old adage about a strong man flying around in his underwear. Well, guess what? On Krypton, the suit that Superman wears from his world is truly their underwear. It's like everyone walked around in this onesie, for lack of a better term to call it, but they had attire and robes and dresses that would go over that, but it was underwear on their planet. Do you see the depth of what they were doing here, as opposed to what James Gunn just came out and just whisked away? And because this world building was something that was at the time underappreciated and seemingly had something so different that it would take a little bit of time to resonate. But that's okay, because as the films would go forward, you would be able to realize certain things. Like, there are stories about Superman and why he has adopted this, not only a happy-go-lucky, gung-ho type disposition, but he has a vow of the importance of human life and vowed to not kill and things of that nature. Those seeds were being sown in this film, the introduction film. He grew up in Kansas, as he told General Swanwick. You know, that's about as American as you can be. Particularly at one time, this country and the values of this country were so Kansas-like, basic, for lack of another better term, white bread, meaning that you were so just t-shirt and jeans, that kind of thing, cornfields, not cornball, but all of that represented something, but it had a wholesomeness to it. In other words, some of the better parts of what the nation had. There are some other places in the nation, definitely, that you can consider that would not necessarily give you that impression, right? It's like, okay, what are we doing here? And that's okay, because at the end of the day, when you have that type of representation, it really means something when you could have someone show you the better side of things instead of the misrepresentation. So that's what we take away from that. So that's one of the things that I just kind of want to openly speak on, because it's important to understand that going forward. I want to say salute to everybody that's come to join me here in the broadcast today. Take a quick moment and acknowledge some of the people we got out there. By the way, Stormy B-Man has a account with Rumble now. If you haven't had a chance, please sign up for my Rumble link over there. Go over there and give me a follow, because we will be producing more content to upload there and go live from that platform, where we'll have more open considerations as far as produce content. So that's why I've put that link in the chat. Let me post. Let me. I want to. See if I can pin it. My fingertips are not very good, man. I have issues with my fingertips sometimes. It doesn't allow me to. There it goes. Oh, I can't pin that way. Let me see here if I could pin it on this one. Daggone it. Okay. Okay, we got Derek Gaines over there at the Rumble app. Appreciate that. I'm trying to pin this, man. Oh, goodness gracious. Come on, man. Give me 1 second, fam. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna pin this, but it's just a matter of my fingertips cooperating with me. It just will not. It's just not letting me do it. Anyway, I see the brothers over there. We got about 7 people over there, but only 2 of the family is showing. Could you guys who are in there please write something in the chat so I could give out the acknowledgments for who's over there? We got the brother Drew Titan in the building. Columbia is out there. 219. BMAC in the building. Mr. Shelton. EJ. David Scott III. And a couple of others who are kind of peeping through the blinds in the bushes, which is okay. That's cool. Just know that if you don't want to say hello, it's okay. I can't acknowledge you if you don't say anything. But yeah. So anyway, so re-enter the Snyderverse is the subject of this live, because there's a lot of talk that with this imminent sale of Warner Brothers DC, Zack Snyder, who is behind the scenes, may very well be returning at a stronger capacity of reinstituting the Snyderverse. Now, what that means is what they had initially intended for the DCEU, for some of those stories to still take place and go forward. And there's an audience for that, which they are looking to gear their subject toward. And that's fine, because the alienation of what was with what Gunn was doing, people were just not receiving that very well. But I do believe there could be a place for that. And one of the things that I've heard some of the large channels, like we got brothers out there like Tyrone Magnus, Aaron Fisher, Harsh Critics, Um, that's just to name a few that they've talked about, maybe even doing Elseworlds stories, which would mean that just like in the comics, you could have two universes running concurrently, but one is kind of a different parrot for audiences that can get into the loosey goosey type stuff, or those that are more appreciative of serious, dramatic, and if you want to go there and say darker themed stories, uh, there's something there for them. Um, Marvel has always been a little looser with their content. They can get serious, but there was always a thing about let's have fun here while we're doing it. DC has always maintained that darkness and seriousness from its initiation, but you could sprinkle humor in at certain times, but that was not the focus. The focus was to tell the stories, and that's what's different. Um, and I think there could be room and space for both. But what has to happen is the investment in what really works has to be given its chance to stretch its legs. And that's what's really important. See, like if you take certain moments from what transpired through the DC universe, first of all, after Man of Steel came BVS, Batman versus Superman. Now, this movie introduced Batman, Bruce Wayne, and Diana Prince, Wonder Woman. They both had some things going on in the background while Superman was battling General Zod in the third act of Man of Steel. The film opens with Bruce Wayne witnessing the destruction of the battle between Kal-El and General Zod, even affecting Wayne directly. So, and Diana was brought in because another character being introduced, Lex Luthor Jr., played by Jesse Eisenberg, and a lot of people didn't like that Lex Luthor. They were like, oh, this guy, that's not Lex Luthor or whatever. But he was a junior. Remember, he was always referring to his dad. So we didn't even get a chance to see his dad. He didn't really say his dad was dead, but you kind of assume that might be the case. But maybe he wasn't. Maybe his dad was locked up. We don't know, because guess what? Zach didn't get a chance to fill in those gaps. But we did see that Junior was a little bit warped, highly intelligent, but someone that was like really, he almost in an autistic way, it was something going on with him psychologically. I want to see more of that, because see, those are levels and depths of the psyche that you could get into in storytelling, which will also explain things like the Joker, right? Batman, because these characters have issues, a lot of them. Bruce Wayne / Batman wanted to take out Kal-El because he looked at him as an alien that was a threat to our society. That byline that was like what made up the story of BVS was something that people kind of overlooked. That the conversation that Bruce had with Alfred about Kal-El, that was a lot of meat and potatoes right there, people. And people see, like, if you go back and you look at the Marvel Cinematic Universe, specifically the first 3 phases, right? When you look at each film and go back and remember that there are places of dialogue that meant so much more upon reflection. When you go back and you say, man, in Iron Man, when they were saying this and they was doing that, it was like, I didn't realize that by the time we got to Civil War, this is the payoff. It was like, you know, but see, that's because they had a chance to stretch their legs. And though they didn't start off with the Justice League right away, what was interesting was Snyder and Nolan were going to do it a different way from Marvel. You had Man of Steel, but you find out by BVS time comes around, there were meta beings, even though Cal was out there, but there were other meta beings in existence. Diana, the Flash, Aquaman, and of course, Bruce / Batman. So bringing them out where they're exposed and then to be able to see them in various stories where they could branch out and go on their own. Cyborg, you know, it was different from what Marvel was doing. So it's like you still have a chance to see something and it's fresh. It's still fresh. Warner Brothers, they just couldn't be patient enough. They just thought that because they threw this together, it should make $1 billion. That's not how that works, people. You have to give something legs in order for it to stand. And once it stands, you can put weight. Once you put weight, you can see a structure. This is how it is in life. We got more people coming into the building. See, we got EJ out there, B Mac. Bernard is out there. Hendog, the fearless one. Jose Diaz in the building. Yeah, so, this is what we have. Legendary says the next Spider-Man movie combined with the X-Men will be the only thing I think to save Marvel. Yeah, but this is the thing, Legendary. I ain't talking about Marvel today. There will be days when I talk about Marvel, but please respect the boundaries, because when I mention Marvel, I didn't mention them to talk about them. I mentioned to talk about the structure of maintaining an audience and building for your audience. That's what I was trying to suggest. And you can tell by the raring against what's happened with James Gunn's participation that the people are just not happy anymore. They're not. And when you lose an audience, sometimes they don't return. Just like Marvel lost a lot of people with their Phase 4. All that D&I and all of that stuff, DIN, whatever you call it. And people didn't go to the movie theaters for that. They wanted to see the graphics and stuff that they read for so many generations and everything, the stories that the reasons that they collect these books, and they have them in sheets of plastic stored in boxes in their closets and in their shelves. And some people have them on display. Some of these content creators that I talk about, they got the stuff on the walls behind them. You can see everything. Just like with me and what I've done with everything that I'm doing over here, because it's like this backdrop that you guys see, that's one of the rooms in my home that it's like I put up articles of interest, posters and stuff that I'm into. That Tyson Holyfield picture is a real piece that I kept, because it's like, wow, I remember when that fight took place and I had it framed and everything, but I don't have a lot of fight posters like that. But if you look around it, it's like there are movie posters and stuff, because I'm a nerd when it comes to that stuff. So yeah, like in my own way, These guys, they do their thing, I do my thing, you know. But the connection that we all have is we want to see the best of it. We want to see when the studios are turning these stories and tales into live action, that we're able to enjoy them to the fullest. And I do believe Zack Snyder understood that. He has the cinematic vision to be able to take what was on the page and put it on the screen in live action. And the studio execs at the time, they didn't have the patience to let this man do what he was doing. But they hired a guy who wants to show necrophilia, a guy who wants to show corn and all this other stuff that has nothing to do with the IP, but everything to do with, you know, what you're showing and conveying to the audiences. Think about what Zach was trying to convey to the audience, and think about what Gunn has done to the audience. Gunn has given you a sense and a feeling and sensation of like, oh, I don't want to go there anymore. It makes me feel awful. It makes me feel dirty. Yes. With Zach, he either made you feel great about the experience, have wonderment, which is okay, or just kind of like bewilderment because you may not understand. But remember, the details are coming. Do you guys remember in BVS how audiences misinterpreted the whole scene between Cal and Bruce/Batman when they were arguing and having their fight and the name Martha was mentioned? Why did you say that name? Do you know audiences was like, man, this dude is snapping, he's crashing out, he's this and that, you know. This was okay 13 years ago almost. But the whole point of it was that many people had forgotten to acknowledge that Bruce's mom's name was Martha, and Cal/Clark's adopted mom's name was Martha. And when Lois pointed it out to Bruce, that's his mom's name. All of a sudden, Bruce had a whole assortment of emotion and feeling behind this. Because remember, he was trying to kill Cal, the alien. All of a sudden, because remember, he had cut his face with the kryptonite spear and everything, right? He steps back. The reason that he became Batman was because some villainous criminal murdered his parents when he was a child, right in front of him. Now he, with this spear, standing over this alien being about to try to take his life, is told by Lois Lane, the biggest news reporter in their region, who's bearing witness to all of this, that Martha is his mom. Mom, death, murder, same name, same circumstance. All of a sudden, there's a whole wealth of emotion that goes through Batman at that moment. James Gunn could never write a scene like that for you to learn what is to come of these men coming together and what could get them to bind to become the world's finest team duo. So when we say all of this, we say it with the understanding that, and you guys see me rubbing my nose, just think I have allergies, and the temperatures here are kind of funny, and it makes my allergies flare up. I have itchy eyes and itchy nose, so that's what that is. So forgive me for that. I'm trying not to rub it as much, but it's just allergies. Um, what I'm saying about this with that scene is it's a level of depth that cinematically these characters never had that before. Never. And it was a very and it gave a sense of connecting because it humanized Cal in Batman's eyes. It humanized him. And Lois knew the story, so he respected Lois because he knows who she is. Pulitzer Prize winning writer for the news, and he had to take a step back. That was some great stuff, people. That was great stuff. And all of a sudden you had people who meant something. They share a common goal and agenda. We got to bring these criminals down. And then there was something else that was sprinkled into that film. Something that we saw a glimpse of, but had yet to receive the backstory. This is a tremendous shot, taken from the graphics too, by the way, but Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne staring in the Batcave at his former ward's costume, Robin. We understand that Robin is no more because he has been deleted. He was deleted by the Joker. And I can't blow it up on this screen here, but in the comics, when Robin was deleted, he was pierced in the shoulders. This costume has pierced marks in it, guys. And of course, spray painted across the chest is a message from the Joker to Batman. Backstory. Building the universe. And we were supposed to get this. See, a lot of people, this stuff go over, especially if you're just a moviegoer, you go in there, you don't read the DC comics, you don't know these things. So, but, oh, it's Batman and Superman, I'll go see it. But you watching, he's like, hey, what the hell is that? You know, but they were going to tell you. Do you realize that at the end of the film, on Wayne's acreage of land, there was a huge building that looked like it had been abandoned and destroyed. I won't say burned down because it wasn't charred, but it looked like it had been abandoned and something bad had taken place there. But after Zack Snyder's Justice League was released, we got a chance to see that place, which is later to become the Hall of Justice for the Justice League. But It's an estate that has a story. All of this meant something. Those producers took all of that away from us people. This was the first image released of Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman during the filming of BVS. When I saw this image of her, I was like, whoa, that's the lady from Fast and Furious? I'm like, okay. Look at that imagery. This is actually during that scene when they were fighting Doomsday. But look at the sparks flying in the backdrop. She's got her sword out. It's like, all of this is to bring you to a place of being invested in storytelling. And Zach, who is one of the best at creating cinematic imagery, the man knows how to shoot that stuff. If any of you ever saw the Watchmen film that he directed, the director's cut, that opening fight between the comedian and whom we later find out is Olympius of, I can't say the guy's name, I forget his name, but that fight scene, it was brutal, intense, hard hitting, everything all rolled into one. And they were just fighting in the living room. It was one of the most amazing fight scenes. I remember when I bought the Blu-ray for Watchmen, I watched that fight scene like several times, maybe 4 or 5 times, because I can appreciate a good fight scene and choreography, but that battle between the comedian and that guy, that was an angry fight. That was somebody who had something against somebody. It was like, I'm going to get rid of you kind of thing. And that's what it turned out to be. And later, when we find out who that was, the comedian was fighting, we were like, oh. But that was all set up with how Zach does his cinematic storytelling from the page to the screen. Even in Man of Steel, one of the complaints about Bryan Singer's Superman Returns, where he had Brandon Routh playing Christopher Reeve's version of Superman, because that film was a direct sequel to Superman 2. One of the audience's biggest complaints was that Superman needs to be able to punch somebody. Of course, he can't punch Earthlings. So the battle with Zod in Man of Steel became very important. Zod is a fellow Kryptonian. So if Superman punches him or he punches Superman, they can go at it all day long because they're invulnerable under the yellow sun. When they let Superman loose on Zod, I remember sitting in the theater when Zod was threatening Martha, Clark's mom. Where is the codex? And he had picked her up. And Superman come bounding in there, and he grabs Zod, and he flew him across the cornfields and everything, and he was punching Zod in his face. You think you can threaten my mother? He was hit. Hey man, that was everything everybody has said they wanted to see Brandon Routh do when he didn't do it in Superman Returns. So here you got Zack delivering again. All of this stuff, people, I'm just saying, audiences now realize. It's just like, you kind of did away with something and you don't miss it till it's gone, right? You're like, man, I wish I had never thrown such and such away. That's the Zack Snyder DC universe. People realize now. They complained in Man of Steel that Zod and Kal created far too much destruction. But if you got super beings, isn't that gonna happen? Do you guys remember the destruction in the first Avengers film? In that third act, when the Chitauri and Loki were destroying New York City? You remember the destruction? How many people lost their lives during that mess? Huh? And when Hulk got released on them, a lot more people got hurt and killed, didn't they? You got to be real, man. You got to be real. This is the real deal. All I'm trying to say, people, is this was done because they were trying to give the audiences what they wanted. We had Joseph Townsend stop in a condo. Sami Hassan is out there. Jamal Davis in the building. Nada 86, what's happening? Personally, I even believe that though Man of Steel and BVS didn't have Kal wearing the curl on his head, I felt that the curl was coming. Remember, Superman in BVS, he met a certain fate. So that meant that he and Clark were no longer around. I believe that they were going to tell us the story of why Clark was gone. They were going to invent some kind of story if they still have it or whatever. And I do believe that Superman having the curl would be the part going forward. You see, what makes me say that is, remember earlier in this broadcast, I was talking about the battle between Kal and Zod. And Superman has a principle about not killing. At least in the comics, he had this. But there was a moment in Man of Steel where Zod was threatening to take out a family with his heat vision. And it looked like it was in a train station or something. And Kal had him in a headlock. And Zod had told him, since you love these people so much, you can mourn for them. And he was going to use his heat vision to destroy this family. And Kal had to make a decision in that instance. He was pleading for him to stop. And Zod said, never. So he took him out. But upon taking him out, he let out this horrendous scream. Can anybody in the chat tell me why they think he let out that horrendous scream? Now, I know I've got you guys on 3 channels. If you write in the chat, it'll show up no matter where you're at. Joe Townsend says, Stormy, it always bothered me that mofo have a moral compass when it comes to violence in a movie, but no moral compass to violence in real life. Yeah. Are you talking about James Gunn? Jamal Davis says, oh man, I love the battle with Superman and Zod in Man of Steel. He felt bad about destroying Zod. And he says, I love the original Zod from Superman 2. Yeah, Terrence Stamp was great, man. He's always the #1 Zod. Although Michael Shannon's Zod wasn't bad either. He was not a bad Zod. Okay, Jamal says, because he was the last of Superman's breed. And Jose Diaz says, because he didn't want to have anybody killed. No, Jamal Davis is pretty spot on. Don't forget, Jor-El put the codex inside of Kal. That meant that he had the DNA of a whole entire race of Kryptonians in his body, which actually makes him superior to Zod in a lot of ways. But what makes him even more superior to Zod is that he was freeborn and not born like Zod and others on Krypton through many generations, because they were created and not born. So, and being raised by the family that he was raised by in Kansas on Earth, he had humility, he had vulnerability, he had all of the qualities that make human beings strong. Then he also had the elements of Kryptonians in him as well. So when he murdered in that instance, he felt that. See, that's the depth of Zack Snyder, Christopher Nolan, and the writing that they did with this character, you guys. Do you see what I'm explaining to you? How the many layers of what they were doing to establish these characters, what it was supposed to mean? He wasn't acting like a wuss, just screaming because he killed. No, he felt that was, he felt that. You know, murderers don't feel what they're doing to their victims. Kal felt that. Dude, there's so many depths of this kind of stuff, and I'm telling you, you rewatch the film, rewatch it. You're gonna get more of what I talked about, because guess what? That's what they did. This is what they were trying to do, trying to give you essence of character, not just special effects and super people. Going to Marvel for a quick second. Iron Man became so popular. Robert Downey Jr. and the whole Tony Stark thing was done well. But there was an element of Tony Stark that they did not follow through, that they should have, and it should have been a part of his story, but they left it out. I don't know if it was because of Robert Downey Jr.'s personal past, and they didn't want to tempt him into going down a dark place because he was a recovering addict. But Stark suffered in the comics from alcoholism. There's a little hint of it in Iron Man 2, but it's suggested. Here in Man of Steel, what I'm saying to you guys about Cal and what's in him and his feelings, emotions, all of that, it's there for a reason. When he sacrificed himself against Doomsday, he basically completed the Christ metaphor, which is why when he comes back from that, after just Zack Snyder's Justice League, he's supposed to be different. But not completely different, because they weren't done telling certain parts of the story regarding Heat. He still had Darkseid to face and some other things that Darkseid was going to do, and making him a weapon and all of that. And when he recovered from all of that, he was supposed to become the Superman that you know in the comics of today. This is the great storytelling, man. These were people, Christopher Nolan and Zack Snyder. They had it all ready for you guys. All ready for you. Then it turns out that they had added a couple of characters. Jason Momoa, Aquaman. Ezra Miller, The Flash. So, to re-enter the Snyderverse would be to bring about storytelling that the entire audience, the viewing audience, can totally get with. It's supposed to provide you all with layers, like peeling away an onion. Simple as that. Raul Garcia, salute to you. Going back to a couple of the comments in the chat. Jamal says, yeah, the original Zod was something else. Salute. He says, correct. That was the connection between Zod and Superman. Zod is not really a villain. He just really cared about his people and bloodline. What I shared with you guys is awesome, man. It's like that is just, and to be perfectly honest with you, Marvel hasn't done any of their characters with that breath of death. They haven't. They've done some good stuff, but nothing along that line. Nothing. And I wish to see that they would. You know, I wish to see that they can come about with something like that. But if you guys don't have an appreciation for what they were doing, then you can understand how James Gunn was able to slip through the cracks and get out there and have his chance to put men's swinging junk in front of camera lenses and everything and attach that to DC IP. What the hell is that, man? Really? Having Superman kicked in his junk on the screen, having him yell at Lois and anybody else, having Supergirl come in as a drunk and profane and all of this. It's like, really? You guys know that there's so much more to do. And they haven't even scratched the surface. But if DC is sold to the right parties, we will get a chance to really enjoy what they do. We'll get a chance. And that's all we're asking for, is simply a chance to have what we really want. So I don't know, you guys. I've been out here for a little while, only for an hour, but I just wanted to do this live. I wanted to talk about, you know, the Snyderverse and everything. We got all these news stories. He's still releasing images, which is saying that to some capacity, he's going to be involved going forward. And I just can't wait for him to get back to it because he has delivered. He has delivered the goods. And you can't deny that. Can't deny that at all. So I thank all of you for, stopping in today. Hit my like button, share the content, man. If you haven't followed me over on Rumble, please go over there and give me a follow because we're trying to build that audience over there. My Temple of Culture and Entertainment channel is nearing 50 subs. It's only been up for like a month or so, 2 months. So it's like, hey, keep showing that support, man. We're gonna do this thing. We're gonna grow. And again, like I said, share it. Don't just hit the like button. Don't just follow and share. Share it to the other social media platforms. Let people see Stormy B Man is doing a variety of content that has something in the bag for everybody. So with that said, I'm going to get on up out of here. I want you guys to enjoy the rest of your Saturday. And I will be back with another one of these type of videos, not talking boxing, very soon. So let me say shout out to the mighty LDBC, and we will catch you guys on the next time out. Peace to everybody.
Thank you.